Okay, and let's get started with Cambridge 15. So, reading one, passage one, nutmeg, a valuable spice. What do we have? We've got 4 gapfuls over here. So they've done a slightly strange thing. They've given us gapful, and then 3 true false not given, and then more gapful. It's actually good news because that means there's 10 gapful and only 3 true false not given. And the gapful tend to be easier. But if they do something like that, they're going to make it difficult in other ways. So they will try and do try and trick you somehow, because they don't make it too easy. Right, so I would just get going straight away with this. Nutmeg, tree and fruit. It's probably going to be over here. So we'll, immediately we can see tree over there. So what we'll do is go and just quickly look, just to make sure that it's in that paragraph. So let's see if we can find some keywords. Tree, yes. Shape, maybe. Fruit, maybe. Nutmeg will be everywhere. This is always good as a keyword, known as. I've mentioned this many times before, when they say it's called or known as or anything like that, termed. Take note of that. And then also it's a very good keyword because this you can't paraphrase. This is like a technical term, and technical terms are always good keywords because you can't paraphrase them. And if they've used it in the question, it means that it definitely comes from the text if it's a technical term. So we'll definitely look for that. Tree again, yellow flowers. So let's just quickly go and look for those. Tree, fruit, arrow, yellow flowers. Alright, there's tree over there. You have to just scan. Maybe you just say it in your heads. Here, they're just saying where it is, so you can just ignore that. Tree again. Foliage, tough leaves. Did I see leaves? Actually, I thought I saw leaves. Sorry, there. Definitely leaves, tree, fruit, flowers. So, yeah, leaves. Flowers. Now, that's a bit strange. Yellow flowers, because they've put it at the end. So that makes me a bit confused, because I would have expected this to come from the end of the paragraph. So we'll see what they've done there. Take a look later. Don't let that sort of thing make you panic though. Just keep on going. Fruit, yes. Fruit again. What else were we looking for? I want that word arrel. Husk, 2 halves, ridge, fruit. You don't have to highlight all of this. Seed, long, across. There, called and arrow. That's very important. These are the sources of the spice, from the seed, and the latter from the arrow again. Okay, good. So, yes, it's in that paragraph. That's all I really wanted to confirm. Here they start talking about the Middle Ages, and they're going into history here. So definitely these 4 questions come from this paragraph. Just confirm that quickly. Now I just want to investigate what's the story with yellow flowers, because as you can see they've put it at the end over here. There's no question there. So what they've done here is basically just try and trick you and confuse you a little bit. This point, it looks like that should actually be somewhere over here in between these two, because it's in the middle of the paragraph. It's right after when they start talking about the leaves. So they've deliberately just put it at the end without any question in it, just to try and confuse you a little bit. Don't let that sort of thing throw you off. Just remember, if you find something like that where you're a bit confused and you don't know what's going on, just remember IELTS is trying to trick you a lot of the time. Anyway, the leaves of the tree are, let's look at the grammar. Are what? What kind of word goes over here? An adjective goes over here. This is the form adjective after the verb to be. The leaves are big, the leaves are, but we want some kind of a shape. So the leaves are round, the leaves are square, the leaves are, they could even say long in shape maybe. So we want an adjective there. The something surrounds the fruit. Please notice this S. What does that tell you? First of all, we know that it's a noun, but because of this S, which is very important in terms of grammar, that means that this is either singular or uncountable noun. If it's plural, that S wouldn't be there. Make sure you understand that, because that often gives you a little bit of extra information about the kind of word that you're looking for. The something, again, is used. It's not are used. This is obviously the passive, but it's is used, not are used. So again, it's a noun. It's a subject of that sentence, but it's either singular or uncountable because it is. The covering known as the arrow is used to produce something that could be anything. I mean, it's a noun. It's probably not singular though, because otherwise it would be a. So it's probably plural or uncountable. Just because there's no there. I think it's not 100% rule, but it's a good rule. It's a reliable enough rule, 95%. And then we can ignore that. So, as always with these gapful, 90% of them are nouns, but you can get extra information about the nouns, single, plural, uncountable, and then we've got an adjective over there. Adjective. So let's look. The leaves of the tree are something in shape. We just need a shape of the leaf. What is the shape of the leaf? And we need an adjective. This is the only place that I saw leaves. Flowers, fruits, blah, 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 fruit, husk, no, nothing about leaves. So this is the sentence that we're looking at, and we need adjective from there describing the shape. So there's an adjective, but that's not describing the shape, that's describing the foliage. Foliage actually means it's a collective term for leaves, but it's not describing the shape. Dense. Make sure you know what dense means. Tough means it's like hard and it's difficult to break. So that's not describing the shape. Dark green, it's another adjective, but that's describing a color, not the shape. And I don't know if you know this word. It means oval, like an egg. An egg is oval shaped. So this word describes a shape. This word is an adjective. So I think it's not too difficult, that one. Even if you didn't know what oval means, you can kind of make a very good guess, because you know that you're over here. You know that you want an adjective. You know, maybe you would have a problem with that word, but you know what that word means. You know what that word means. All these other adjectives, they don't describe shape. So you could take a pretty good guess that it was that word over there, even if you don't know what oval means. Right, the something surrounds the fruit and breaks open when the fruit is ripe. Let's see if we can find ripe, surrounds, breaks open. Ripe, surrounds, breaks open. So here's ripe. I can see that immediately. This husk splits into two halves. Splits is breaks open. Splits, breaks open into two halves is not really relevant there. Splits into two halves, blah, 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 blah. So what splits into two halves? This husk. So this husk is referring to this word over here. Can you find surrounds? And surrounds is this word, but it's used in the passive. It is encased. It's like the word case, like suitcase. It surrounds it. It's inside it. It's another good example of these words. They're very useful in English that begin with en, ensure, and all of that. They're good words to learn. So this fruit is surrounded by or is encased in a fleshy husk. The husk splits into two. The husk breaks open. So it's a singular noun, the husk. Surrounds, is encased by, splits open. What does this? The husk does it. So again, not too bad, I don't think. No real tricks. The husk surrounds the fruit. The something is used to produce the spice nutmeg. There's no really great keywords over there. To produce maybe the spice nutmeg, but the whole thing is nutmeg. However, I don't see nutmeg much in this paragraph. Fruit, husk, splits, halves. So in this case, I've never done this, never said this before. in this case only, maybe it's good to scan for nutmeg, just because nutmeg is really not anywhere around here. It's over here, and then where else? Can you see it? So we're looking for nutmeg. Spice was also a good word to look for in that one. So this spice nutmeg is pretty good. So that means we've gone all the way to the end. But there weren't great keywords in that one, so I wouldn't, don't panic. You can skip it, and let's just see if we can find the next one. The covering known as the arrow, because we know where that one is. So it's actually a good idea. If you're having problems with that one, just skip it. The covering known as the arrow is used to produce what? What does the arrow produce? So here they've introduced the arrow. So now we're definitely looking at this for what does the arrow produce? These are the sources of the two spices, nutmeg and mace. The former refers to the nutmeg. You should know this structure. And the latter refers to mace. So we use this structure, the former and the latter, when we don't want to repeat. We only use it when we talk about two things, A and B, and then the former, like before, is A, and then the latter, like late, is B. So you probably know that structure. I should actually make these colors different, just to make it clear. The former is the nutmeg, and the latter is the mace. So the what is produced from the arrow, produced from the arrow, the latter is produced from the arrow. But don't say the latter. The latter is talking about mace. It's like the later one, the earlier one and the later one. So what is used to produce, no, what is produced from the arrow, and it's this one over here. So this was an important phrase because it's at the end of this sentence, and it's introducing two important nouns over there. So it's an important little piece of language at the end there. So mace, I think I've explained that clearly enough. It's an uncountable noun, like all spices. Most spices, usually with foods, they're uncountable. Spices are like salt and pepper and chili. They're all uncountable. So is used to produce the spice nutmeg. So where do we get the spice nutmeg? So it was good to go forward and find this sentence, because they're saying the former is used to produce the spice nutmeg. So the former is produced from the dried seed, and there is our noun over there. Again, it was single. Seed. So what can we learn from that? This leaves wasn't too bad. They tried to confuse us a little bit with this yellow flowers, which they put at the end of the questions. Our keyword ripe, we should have definitely looked at ripe. And then this keyword, this arrow, was very important because it showed us it brought us to two answers. But it's a little bit confusing here because things are not really in order. These four are in order. But what's confusing in this paragraph is that the keywords are not actually in order. Arrow and yellow flowers, seed comes later. Seed is over here. And so the keywords arrow and flowers are actually before that answer. So I think what we can say is the rule is that these answers must come in order. But it doesn't mean that the keywords have to be in order. Usually the keywords are in order, but IELTS, I knew they were going to try a few tricks in this one because they've given us too many gap fills, so they're going to try something. So they've put the keywords not in order, which just you've got to be prepared for that kind of thing and just be a little bit flexible. Only the answers have to be in order, not necessarily the keywords. but the keywords are usually in order. All right. Now, what it's a very good thing to do is don't just go on, or maybe after you've done this, just take a minute to go over the strategy that you used for this paragraph and go over what you learned. Say, okay, first I should have seen that, and then I saw all these keywords, then maybe I did the grammar, then I got a bit confused, so then I continued and found the other keywords, and just go through the strategy in your head a second time. That's the only way that you're going to learn the strategy and develop an instinct for strategy, is if you go over it once you've done it. Right, let's move on to what? We could look at this, but I actually want to go, this is really up to you. I would want to go to this. But let's just see if we can find, because I see lots of nice keywords here. Let's just see if we can find where these come from. I might come back to them later. So we've got Middle Ages, we've got Europeans, we've got VOC, which is quite a nice keyword, Treaty of Breda, and Dutch. I'm just choosing these as keywords because they've all got capitals. So Middle Ages, Europeans, VOC, Treaty of Breda, Dutch. So European over there and Middle Ages is over there. So that's maybe where that one is from, Europe again. But now I want that VOC and I can't see it. And I keep on looking for VOC. And this is, I suspected IELTS would do this. They're going to take it from everywhere. And then finally I see VOC over there, so that's probably where the next one comes from. Then what else were we looking for? Treaty of Breda and Dutch. Dutch is actually everywhere, Dutch. Treaty of Breda, Dutch is over there. And then Dutch is everywhere. And then only down there do I see Treaty of Breda. So I'm just going to leave it. I've just found where they come from. They're kind of everywhere, and I'll come back to those later. I just want to finish up with these gap fill because they tend to be a little bit easier. Middle Ages. We did see Middle Ages. Nutmeg was brought to Europe by the. So this must be a noun, and it must be something referring to people because they brought it to Europe. Brought the spice nutmeg to Europe. People bring. So Middle Ages, who brought the spice nutmeg to Europe? Here's Middle Ages. Used as a flavoring throughout this. You see we've got Europe over there. The Arabs were the exclusive importers of the spice to Europe. Importer is they brought it to Europe. So I think that one is quite straightforward. The Arabs brought it to Europe. Importers brought to. We wanted a noun. It was either going to be plural or countable, uncountable. Right. Now maybe before we actually did that, we should have just gone and checked where everything is. It just gives you a bit of an idea where they're taking everything from, gives you a little bit of confidence, because I do see that there are some dates here and they're quite easy to find. So even maybe before I even did this number 8, maybe we should have gone and just checked where everything is. 16th century, 17th century, 18th. The important thing to remember here is this is going to start with a 15, this is going to start with a 16, this is going to start with a 17. As you can see over here, the dates will start with one less. So this would, even though there's no answer here, it's worth just taking a look and seeing around about where it is. We want some kind of thing about 16th century, and we're expecting it to be in the next. You see, here's 16th century, and here is also 16th century. So here they're continuing with 16th century. Here they move into 17th century. So they're doing as we expect. Is they're going by paragraph. So now we're in the 17th century paragraph. It's a good idea to just go and find these two dates because dates are easy to find. 18th century paragraph, and there it is over there and over there. So that tells us where those are. You could even go and look for these answers at this point if you wanted to, because we know exactly where they are. So this is where we're looking for now. We've got, it's kind of divided into two paragraphs, and if you look at these, I'll just make it smaller so we can see. these there's 2 paragraphs over there broken. The paragraph break is over there, so that's where all of these come from in the 17th century box. Right, so the number 9 is probably going to be in this first paragraph over here, and then 10 and 11 will be in this next paragraph over here. So let's go and look for some keywords now. We've got a general idea where everything is. Definitely we're going to look for disease. Then we want Dutch. Dutch is going to be everywhere, but because it's a capital, we can maybe find a little bit easier. Avoid cultivated and British. So let's just take a look. The island of, that might help us. Well, we'll get there later. Let's just see if we can find this disease first. We're pretty sure that it's going to be in this paragraph somewhere over here. So if you just scan for something about disease, maybe it's illness or something, sickness or something else, a synonym, but actually we see disease over there. So we read that sentence. At the same time, thousands of people across Europe were dying of the plague, a highly contagious and deadly disease. So this is, again, they've introduced a new term. This is kind of a technical term. It's the name of a disease. And here they've given the definition of that disease, of that term. So it's this pattern again, which we've seen many, many times. They introduce a technical term and they give its definition, and then they love asking questions about that. So we can see over here, what is the technical term? It's the plague, the disease known as the plague. Again, these words known as, just like we saw over here. Where is it? Over here, known as, always introducing very important language, known as, called, termed, because they're introducing this new technical term. So always notice that sort of thing. In this one, they didn't use it as an answer, but it was a very important keyword. But here, actually, they use it as the answer, as they very often do. So again, I can't stress that enough. Technical terms and their definitions. Very often they won't take the answer from the technical term itself. Very often they take the answer from the definition, because that's also very important information. All right, next. Dutch Banda Islands restricted a few areas, put something on nutmeg to avoid it being cultivated, finally obtained. I'm going to look for cultivated, but I like this, the island of something. It's quite clear, maybe only to a native speaker, I don't know, but it seems quite clear that this is the name of the island. We often say the island of something, and then give the name of the island. So I'm really looking for the name of an island, but I'll keep looking for cultivated as well. It's a difficult one because it's probably somewhere in this big paragraph over here. So cultivated and the island of. And then you kind of just have to scan for those two. Don't read yet. It's not detailed reading yet. And if you can see island, here's Banda Islands. A sliver of land called Run. So maybe it's, you see, I am looking for the name of an island, so it's going to be capitalized. And this tiny island is important. So what are we talking about? This tiny island. This tiny island is the sliver of land called Run. We can scan a little bit more, and actually we see island over there, but we see exactly what we want to see over there is the island of Run. So it was just a matter of scanning, and it was a matter of knowing that you're looking for the name of an island, the island of Run. So I would have done that one over there, because that actually helps us with the previous one, so we know that it's somewhere before. So this big paragraph is actually divided into 2 paragraphs. This is actually the second half of this. Here they're talking about the island of Run. What are they talking about before all of that? And what they're actually talking about, it's this is the topic of that small paragraph, is they protected their investment. How did they do it? They concentrated all of this. Anyone doing it was punished. In addition, that was done. So they've given 3 points over here. connected by this linking language over here. 3 things that the Dutch did to protect their investment: concentrated production into guarded areas, punished anybody who broke the rules, and covered lime, put lime all over the seeds so that it could not be grown elsewhere. And that's actually the word that I'm looking for, is cultivated. There is like a negative in there, could not be grown, and the negative is in this word avoid. Avoid is kind of a negative word. So there is my keyword, and that's somewhere in the sentence. And they put this, the nutmeg was covered with lime. That means they put the lime on the nutmeg. Maybe that was an important verb over there for this. So lime was the answer there. Lime is just like a substance that they use to stop things from growing. Maybe that one was a little bit tricky. I think that one was probably the most difficult one out of all of these. So if you find yourself searching and searching and searching, then rather just come back to it. An important thing to see there was actually this started a new paragraph essentially. I talk a lot about this in the task 2. This is called like a bridging sentence, when they actually preparing the reader for what is going to come afterwards. Actually, you could, if you wanted to, you could use a colon over there. It's setting the scene, preparing the reader for the information that comes next. So it's a good thing to notice and try and use, if you can, in your task 2. Anyway, the point was this big paragraph. It's actually 2 paragraphs, right? And then onto these final ones. Nutmeg plants were secretly taken to. They were taken to. That means that this is a place. Let's go and look at the 770. What was happened? And we're also looking for secretly. So we're in this sentence over here. This is not important. Successfully smuggled nutmeg plants to safety in Mauritius, an island off the coast of Africa. So this is not important. It's just the definition of Mauritius. But I think a lot of students will choose safety over here. And to tell you the truth, I don't think that that can be called incorrect. Common sense tells us that this must be a place. So that's why, yes, the answer is Mauritius. But if a student says taken to safety, I don't know if you can say that that's incorrect, because this makes sense. It's taken to safety. The grammar's fine. And that's exactly what it says in the text. It was taken to safety. So yes, common sense says we're looking for a place, and I would have chosen Mauritius if I was doing this. But if a student has to come to me and say, okay, why is safety incorrect, then I can't answer that. So I think it's a slight mistake by IELTS. It's a little bit of confusion between those two there. I don't think it's so good. There shouldn't be any confusion as to what the answer is. 778, half of the plantations were destroyed by, okay, so we're looking for a singular noun over here. Something destroyed. I think destroyed is the important thing there. Can you see destroyed? Next, some of these were later exported where they thrived, and here's destroyed, and here's half the groves. So they basically switched active and passive over here. Were destroyed by, and this is just a synonym for destroyed. What destroyed the groves? Of course, it's quite clear that it's a tsunami, but some students might say volcanic eruption. But there's a couple of reasons why you shouldn't say a volcanic eruption. One, because it wasn't the volcanic eruption that destroyed it. The tsunami destroyed it. Secondly, you only allowed one word. And if you take eruption, then this has to change to an. And we're not looking for an something. It starts with it doesn't start with a vowel. So it can't be an eruption. Must be Tsunami. Alright, so that wasn't so bad. I think this one was quite difficult, but the others not so bad. What can we learn from this? Just take a minute before you do them just to find where everything is. These were quite nicely distributed by paragraph. That was a paragraph. This was the big paragraph. This was the next paragraph. So it was quite neatly spread out and divided among by paragraph, and that should have helped you to find things quite easily. All right, and onto the true, false, not given. Right, so as we've seen, they've kind of taken it from everywhere. We sort of found these keywords. Let's go and find this one. Middle Ages Europeans, and what did they say? Most Europeans knew where nutmeg was grown. So it could be the most Europeans, or it could be did they know or did they not know, that the target language here. So we're in this paragraph over here. There's not much really to look for. There's European over there, but that's not talking about the European people. This is talking about the European people, because only people can know where the nutmeg was grown. Where might be important, but it won't be the exact word. Can you see anything that's related to where? I don't see anything that's related to knew or to know. So you kind of have to do a little bit of detailed reading here, because it's not really easy to find the target sentence over here. So you actually have to read the whole paragraph. There's a couple of clues. One is the but. I've said to you very often, but the contrast marker introduces important information. Another clue is that we're looking for something about where, which is place, anything to do with place. And this is location is to do with place. So I would sort of take a guess that this is our target sentence over here, because of the but, and also because we're talking about place. Where did the Europeans know where this stuff was grown? The Europeans isn't in the sentence, but it's just sort of implied. This should be to the so the Europeans, it's kind of suggested that that's there. That's where it should be, the exact location. All right, so however, they never reveal the exact location of the source to the Europeans. So the Europeans did not know it, because the Arabs who were importing it never revealed it. So we'll go with false there. VOC was the world's first major trading company. So that's quite clear, the target language. Were they the first, or did they come later? Was somebody else first? And what they do over here, if you read it, they got a lot of superlatives. They were the richest, and they were very big, and they had this huge army, thousands of people, and then they go into something else about the plague. So here they're talking about the VOC, and they're saying that they were very big and very rich and very powerful, but there's nothing there about them being first. So quite a clear not given over there, I think. And then if you're out of time, you can guess false over here. Usually if there's only three, it means one's true, one's false, one's not given. But there's no rule that says IELTS has to do that. It's just usually, if you have to guess. So I'm guessing this one will be true. After the Treaty of Breda, the Dutch had control of all the islands. And again, quite difficult, because you had to find Treaty of Breda, and it was all the way down there. So scanning. Did they have all the islands? You have to sort of read all of this then. They had a trade, they gave them this island, they gave them that island. After that, this is now, that means after all of that, the Dutch had a monopoly over the trade, which would last for another century. So that kind of means, yes, they did have, if you have a monopoly, it means you control everything in that market. And actually we wanted to, we can go back to this sentence over here. The Dutch wanted to secure their hold over every nutmeg producing island, and so they offered a trade, and then the trade was successful, and then the Dutch now, which doesn't mean now, it means then, after the trade, had a monopoly. So they were successful in this intent. They had control over all because they had a monopoly. So yes, our guess was correct, and that was true. I've gone quite quickly through these three because at this stage you want to go fairly quickly through them, because you're going to spend most of your time on these other 10. Make sure you can get those 10 marks, and then even if you go fairly quickly through those, you might get one or two of them. Alright, great. So let's stop there and move on to passage 2. The main thing I just want you to remember from this, I think, is in this one over here. Remember that the answers are in order, but the keywords are not always in order, and they can confuse you like that. Make a distinction between the answers and the keywords. Answers have to be in order, that's the rule. Keywords can be out of order. They can not be in order. And so don't let that confuse you. Distinguish between answers and keywords. Great, thank you very much.